Hello, beautiful souls, and welcome back to my channel. My name is Heather, and today I will share my testimony, my story, and my journey through spirituality. And I want to share how I've gone from being an atheist that led me into my New Age journey, where I experienced Buddhism, witchcraft, sorcery, all of the things, mediumship, psychic abilities, and eventually, ultimately, was led to a deep and personal encounter with who I believe is the real and true Jesus Christ. And the transformation of it all, the ups and downs, the highs and the lows, the things that were missing, and ultimately the things that ended up getting fulfilled in my walk with Christ that I am in currently. So, like all good stories, I want to take a moment to start from back to the beginning. Okay. So, as a young child, I grew up in a Southern Baptist church. And when I was a child, I loved going to church. I didn't go regularly, but I loved going, for the food and the friends and the community and just to play. And I wasn't really concerned with the learning and the true reasons you're supposed to go to church. I every time I had those youth experiences, I would have questions and I would be like, well, this doesn't make a whole lot of sense. And the pastor is saying I'm supposed to feel this way and I don't. And I was just being honest. And I would try to share those doubts. I would try to share those things that were coming up for me. And I was always met with this, well, you better not feel that way. You better figure it out. Over time, it almost felt like I wasn't learning anything. It felt like I was being pushed into believing something blindly without even really comprehending it or understanding it. And I was never met with this like, hey, it's okay to not understand. This is how it's supposed to be, kind of thing, which is where I'm at today, what I feel like I'm being shown today, not by a church and not by a religious leader, but by Christ himself. And so it's been crazy, going from being a child and being feeling this feeling of like, hey, you've got to understand this, and if you don't, there's something really wrong with you, and don't talk about it, and just be quiet and just follow suit. Right? It really felt like that for me in church as a child, and it didn't help that I grew up in a divorced home. Okay, so my dad and my dad's side of the family were super religious, super into Christ and all of the things, or super into church. But they it's like my dad was not really super educated and he wasn't reading the Bible every day, and he truly was not um acting like he was trying to remove himself from sin. He was drinking and partying and sex obsessed and, a little disgusting. I loved my dad. My dad was like my best friend, but he didn't really necessarily give me like a good role model or an example of what it is to be a disciple of Christ, to truly follow and know Christ. Um, but he argued with me to the death, right? He's like, no, I love Jesus and Jesus is God. And like, it's like he knew it. He knew it so deeply and he was not shaken on it, but he just didn't really give me a Christ like the following example, if that makes sense. And then on the other end of the spectrum, I had my mom, who was an atheist, or kind of like an extreme feminist. She was like, if there is a God, she's a woman, kind of thing. And she had been really traumatized and hurt by pretty much every man she's ever encountered. And I think she had a lot of religious trauma, like there was a lot of maybe religious things coming up for her that made her feel like men are superior, women are nothing. And, I understand where that's coming from like some of these churches, some of these religious leaders, some of these experiences here. But what is so sad to me is my mom, I don't think my mom ever got to experience the real Christ and what's really happening in the Bible. Like when you read the Bible, there's these stories, there's history, right? And if you read it on a surface level, it feels crazy and like what the F is going on kind of thing. But God has hidden some really deep and profound messages and understandings throughout the story and throughout the book. And you can only hear it if you can kind of get out of your own way. And that's the hardest thing to do. And that's where a lot of my grief comes from is I feel like there's so much noise, there's so much trauma, there's so much pain in the world today. And I feel like it gets in the way of us really being able to have the eyes and the ears to hear and see the message that God has for us in his word. And and then it doesn't help, that there's these people who are abusing God and Jesus and his word to use fear and control and oppression in the world. And it's so hard. I know that it's so hard. And I've been in a victim of the oppression and the hardness of it. Um, so growing up with that on my mom's side, when I became around 12 years old, and I'm like, okay, I'm like, growing up and I'm starting to really start to understand things and, kind of trying to put some pieces of the puzzle together. And during that experience of trying to put these pieces together, start trying to read the Bible. Okay. I'm like, okay, well, I go to church. I love church. But they're teaching something there. They're trying to teach me something there, and I'm not getting it. So I was like, well, I know how to read. So I'm gonna start reading. And I started in Genesis. I personally don't recommend, right? I don't recommend starting in Genesis because it's a lot. It's a lot to take in and it can make you run away, really. Um, but I didn't know that. Nobody ever told me to read the Bible, number one. And I'm in church, right? So this is a problem. Number two, um, nobody told me where to start. So if I could recommend where for you to start, I personally started this journey go around. I started in two different books. I started in the book of Proverbs and I started in the book of John. So I read the book of John probably. I was reading Proverbs and John. I would read one in the morning and one at night, and I would just read little bits at a time. And as things were coming up, or I would have questions, or I'd be like, "What? I feel like this doesn't make any sense." Like um, my mindset, the paradigm shift that I went into this time, and luckily this was on my own, right? Like this was a calling of like a personal encounter, an experience with Christ. This wasn't like, oh, I'm going to church and I feel like I just need to do this, or oh, I think I'm going to go to hell if I don't do this, so I need to do this because that wasn't where I was coming from. So I was like, okay, I've had an encounter with Jesus. Jesus is making me feel like I really trust him. I need to trust this Bible and I need to trust the process. So just like I had been doing with all of my new age stuff, right? So I had been experiencing over the last 7 years, learning about chakras and energy centers and reading tarot cards and doing witchcraft and practicing sorcery and meditation and manifestation and doing all of these things that required levels of trust, faith, and just kind of surrendering to the process. Like, okay, I don't know what's going on. I don't know if anything's going to happen, but I'm open, right? Like, I'm open to results. I'm open to visions. I'm open to experiences. And I don't have any expectations, but I'm not going to, you know, set myself up for failure and go in with a doubting mind or like, no, nothing's going to happen. I'm like, well, something happens, something happens. I trust whatever's going to happen. And so I really developed that muscle of faith in the unseen, right? In the unknown, and just trusting in the unseen, in the unknown. And I was doing all the crazy stuff, I was doing all the things. And it was beautiful. It was a wonderful experience until it kind of wasn't, like it did lead to, um, and I personally believe God created everything. It even says that in the Bible, right? Like he created all of it, including Satan and hell and evil and all the things. And that's maybe a deeper conversation we'll go into in one of my future faith talks, you know, when I'm telling you a little bit more about my story and trying to understand it all. But before I even started having a relationship with Christ and a relationship with the Bible, I believed that. I was really into Taoism, so the yin and the yang and good and evil is all one creation. And so I already had like a healthy mindset around this duality and this like creation of everything being already, and like they work together in harmony. Again, I don't think Taoism like is the truth or full truth. I think there's distortion there. But I do believe that there are truths, there's fragments of truth in all of those things in Buddhism, in Hinduism, Taoism, and sorcery, even like it's crazy. I've had a lot of experiences with it. And so just like I had to do with all of those things, I had to surrender. I had to put my trust into it. I was giving Jesus and I was giving the Bible that same chance. I was like, okay, I don't understand this. This is kind of eliciting some uncomfortable feelings and emotions and thoughts. And I'm getting like, I'm feeling all the feelings. My heart's racing. I'm getting triggered, whatever you want to call it, like I'm experiencing it. But instead of doing what I did when I was a 12-year-old, right? Like I was starting to have all of those things come up. And what I did when I was 12 is I set the book and I said, you know what, screw this. Um, this isn't for me. I think this is a bunch of hooey. I think this is a bunch of made up crap that people are using to create control and whatever. And I kind of went off of a dark, deep end and became an atheist for most of my life and totally avoided it at all costs until my dad died. And then when my dad died, that's when I was like, okay, anything but Christ. Even though that was what my dad believed in was like Jesus, because like I said, he believed in Jesus, but like to me, he wasn't doing anything to show me Jesus. I love my dad. And like again, he was my best friend. I love my dad. So when I lost him, it was so devastating. And I went on a search to the spirit realm. I was like, where are you? I know you're here. I know you're not gone. There's no way, like my atheist beliefs of like we come from nothing and we return to nothing. It was being shooken. It was being shaken up and it was being rattled quite a bit when he died. I was like, no, he's still here and I have to find him. And that kind of led me to the chakras. I had heard if you open your third eye, you can talk to dead people and all the things. So I was doing Ouija boards, I was doing the chakras, I was trying to meditate, I was trying to open up. It became clear to me that I was more agnostic than atheist, right? Like that I believed in something, I just didn't understand it or what was going on. And it was becoming very clear that that was the case for me. And so then I went on a pursuit, on a journey to find the truth. And I spent the first couple of years really dedicating myself to being like a Buddhist monk. I called myself a monk mom because this is when my daughter was only 1 when I started doing that. And so I was a monk mom. I had my own little office. I had my meditation station and I was meditating every day. I was learning, I was studying trauma healing, um, subconscious reprogramming the mind, a law of attraction, manifestation. I was learning all of this. I was absorbing it. It was like so good to me. And I was led into getting my certification to become a life and health coach. I taught for the last 7 years. I worked with hundreds of different women, focusing on healing trauma through self love and changing the subconscious and working on self talk patterns and changing your mindset, seeing things differently, seeing things through a lens of gratitude. And there was so much fulfillment, there was so much joy, and there were so many good results in those times. And what eventually it happened to me, it happened to like pretty much all of my clients. Um, we just kept wanting more, right? Like we were having these really wonderful, positive experiences, but there always seemed to be this promise or this place of nirvana or this place like that we were meant to reach. Like, and we were just like, okay, well, I just got to keep working. I just got to keep doing. I got to keep striving. I got to get there, right? Like, I got to get to this level that I'm supposed to reach. And then life is just going to be good. Well, for a long time, I got to the understanding of, well, let's let go of that goal. I don't think life is supposed to just be good. I think life is like this. It's not this straight line, right? Like think about your heartbeat, right? Like this is a heartbeat. That means you're alive if things are going like this and not like this, right? And so I taught on that basis for a long time. And that was great. Like I said, there was a lot of fulfillment and that is truth. And it's biblical. It's biblical truth. But that is the way that the world works. That is nature. That is the human experience. And the problem is though, without Christ, this can become exhausting, depleting, and feeling like there's no purpose in it. So with Christ, though, even if you have spent years doing healing work and seeing through new eyes of gratitude, and you've had those moments and those experiences of, oh my gosh, yes, this is heaven on earth. Yes, this is bliss. And that's where I was at. I still always felt like I've got to help other people heal. I've got to be the savior of humanity so that we can, as a collective, as a world, get back to the Garden of Eden. But I was doing it in kind of like a new age sense. I was like, okay, well, Jesus showed us individuals how to be the savior, right? Like I was never giving him credit as like he is our savior. I was like, he showed us how to be the savior so we could save humanity and get us back to the Garden of Eden. And so it's like all of that is so beautiful and all of that is so great. And I feel like it points, well, I don't feel I personally know that it points to this higher realm, this higher experience of, okay, Christ is going to make the world new. It's prophesied in the book. And so no wonder all these new age people and these new age feelings are like, we've got to heal the collective so that we can let earth ascend into this new earth. And it's simple, it's prophesied, it's written in our hearts. And so it's just this really awesome, incredible thing. So you can be super fulfilled. You can be having like these extremely miraculous experiences, these beautiful, blissful experiences. But if you're anything like me, you are always kind of like left with, okay, I'm here, but now I've got to get everybody here. Right. And it's very evangelical. Like when you really experience Christ truly, or, there's, for me, I feel like there's two different kinds of evangelical experiences. So one is when you really meet Christ, and then you just, and it's the same with the new age, right? Like it's when you really learn how to heal yourself and you learn how to self-love and you learn how to change your mindset. You become obsessed with sharing that love and sharing those techniques and sharing those abilities with everybody else around you. It's very similar. And then there's the, oh, I believe I'm going to go to hell without Jesus. And but now I'm like going to get into this doctrine of all this and I've got to share that. And what that did for me is anybody who came to me and acted like that, like it made me want to run far away from Jesus. And that's just me personally. And that's just not how I think anybody's going to have a real relationship with Jesus, a real one, right? Like it's going to be this surface level, I'm doing it because I'm afraid, kind of thing. And I want people to have a real experience with Jesus. And of course, I respect where everybody stands, but I just think it's so beautiful how there are so many fragments and intertangled truths and, and experiences. And when I get to the root of all of it, or when I like connect it all, we see it so clearly that it's written out in the Bible too. We just have to have the eyes and the ears to see it. And the world, right, or Satan, right, the principalities of evil who run the world, they they make us, Satan makes us want to run to everything but God, right? And then he uses people like the people saying you're gonna go to hell if you don't believe in Jesus. He uses those kind of people to, kind of sit back and like, because you feel Jesus's love. You're like, Jesus, like God, my God, right? Like my God loves me, and it was unconditional, and all these things. And sin feels so heavy and shameful, and all the things. But the more I'm getting into it, the less I feel like that's what it's meant for. It's not meant to bring you shame. Learning and understanding God's standards and God's sin and, wrong, wayward ways is is for vitality and health and endurance and strength and abundance, right? Like it's not like meant to bring you shame. It's not meant to be like, oh, you do this, you are a wretched, shameful abomination, piece of crap, like you're going to hell, I hate you kind of thing. And I feel like that's how people in religious in the religious world have really made God out to be. And I just don't think it's the truth. And then I feel like there's all ancient and these ancient and native techniques and practices, and they have so much feeling of unconditional love, non-judgment, and it's really what I believe God truly is, and it is spelled out in the Bible this way, but the Bible has just been so distorted and so twisted to fit certain narratives or to push certain agendas that we just can't see it. And from my experience, Jesus has showed me that he is above all of them. I went from being a Buddhist, meditating on Shiva, the goddess or god of Shiva, and it was this androgynous god who was the destroyer of illusions, basically. And it was like very much so the yin and the yang, like everything is good and evil and yada yada yada. So I would worship that deity. I did that for like 2 years straight. I loved it. I had great experiences from it, but of course I wanted more, right? Like I was like, okay, what's next? All right, this is kind of running out of power, right? This is running out of energy. And and then the next thing I was kind of led into was witchcraft and sorcery. I feel like I had an encounter with the deity of Hecate. Hecate came to me one day in my meditation. And so I was like, I don't know who Hecate is. I've got to figure this out. I became obsessed with figuring out who she was. I started researching her. She was very similar to Shiva, the destroyer of illusions, in the way of Hecate had two forms. Hecate was known to be extremely powerful. She was the gatekeeper of life and death. Um, right? Like these two beautiful things. So she was like a goddess. She was like pure, like holy goddess, and she was also completely demonic. Like she had two completely different sides to her. And so I was always really called to her holy, righteous goddess self. I was like, I would always worship and visualize her in her light and her goddess. And I would always work with this part of the deity. And then I never judged the demon side of her. I understood it. Like I said, I was learning Taoism and the yin and the yang and the whatever. So I was like, yeah, everybody has a dark side. Kind of, I knew for sure I had a dark side, right? Like I had anger and I had sexual sin and I had all of these things, these like really ugly demented kind of ways. And so I was like, well, this is a depiction of that. But I was always chasing the holiness, right? Like I was like, oh, I want the holiness. I want to be more holy. I want to be more godlike. Um, it's like I'm like learning to self love and I'm learning to accept and love these parts of myself and understand that they are just parts of myself. But I don't want to be these parts of myself. Like, I don't want to be in this darkness. I don't want to be in the demented side of myself. So I was worshiping her God self, the holy self, for like 2 years straight. I was worshiping. I was dedicated, devout to her, and and then my mom died. And after my mom died, just a few different things started to change. And I was kind of introduced into this like prosperity gospel experience. And from the prosperity gospel experience, I was starting to be introduced back into the Bible, back into scripture, but from a new lens of like, oh, manifestation and oh, God's promises and abundance and all of these things. And so I was starting to understand like Jesus from a different angle of, oh, he wants us to have like the divine design, right? He wants us to have the health, the wealth, the love, and the purpose, right? Like the fulfilled purpose. And all of this prosperity gospel, again, was true, had truth to it, but it wasn't the truth, right? Like it was again, the yin and the yang kind of thing. You had truth, but it's missing. There's just things that are missing, right? Like it's a little bit distorted, it's a little bit perverted, it's like 99.9% true, but it's 0.1 that is distorting it, perverting it a little bit, and just making it not right. And it's making it not feel peaceful, and it's making us chase and strive for more. And but I'm thankful for it. So after this, I got introduced back into Jesus, and then Hecate, it was cool. Hecate kind of I did like again, this might sound crazy to some people, but this was my experience, my personal experience in my meditative state, my like psychic abilities or whatever, my sensitivities to visions. I had a vision of Hecate symbolically handing the relay bit over to Jesus. And so Hecate was like, here, you're with him now. And I was like, okay. So, but at this point, so this is when my mom died in 2023. At this point, I was not like, oh yeah. I was like, Jesus is cool. Jesus is a blueprint. And I was kind of putting Jesus and Hecate and Buddha all on the same level, right? Like I was like, okay, Jesus is like an ascended master. Jesus is a God and a deity that I'm going to worship similarly to the way that I was worshiping Shivaya and Hecate and all of those things. And so I did that for a long time. But of course, Jesus doesn't have a way to worship like Hecate and Shiva. Like Hecate and Shiva had like mantras and chants and like visuals, right? Like they always had like 7 hands or 3 or 4 heads and all of these things. Like you would visualize these little elements and these aspects of them and you would chant to them. But of course, Jesus he doesn't have that. So I was like, okay. So I stopped worshiping Hecate and I started praying to Jesus. So that was the only way that I knew how to connect with Jesus was through prayer. So I was connecting to Jesus through prayer. I was still super uncomfortable with like Heavenly Father and all the like terms or whatever because of my like religious trauma. But I started praying to Jesus. I started saying, Jesus, what do I do? I wouldn't really pray in like a religious sense or whatever. I just didn't feel like that didn't feel authentic to me. So I would just talk to Jesus like a friend. I would just be like, hey, I'm really struggling, Jesus. And I think you have the answers and I don't know what to do, but I'm not reading my Bible. I'm not doing anything. So Jesus is just kind of hanging out with me like for like a year straight. Jesus is just beside me and I'm not doing anything with it because I don't know what to do with it. And I am so adverse and against getting into the Bible. Um, so I tried to go to churches and then they pissed me off immediately. They start talking crap about Buddhism and they start talking crap about other religions or this, that, and the other thing. I'm like, Jesus, these people are just judging everybody. Like, I don't think you're in this place at all. And so I couldn't go to the church. I couldn't read the Bible. I couldn't do anything because I was just seeing Jesus as my friend. And so I'm hanging out with Jesus as my friend. And then I'm just slowly more and more and more getting into more and more turmoil in my relationship with my husband, in my business. I feel like my business as a trauma recovery coach, um, my relationship with my husband, everything was going downhill very quickly. And I was like, man, I got to get back. I got to get back to where I was in the beginning. I got to go back to Buddhism. I got to go back to meditating. I got to go back to sobriety. I got to go back to all these things that I was doing in the beginning. And so I was running. I was trying to go backwards. And we reached a breaking point. You know, me and my husband really reached a breaking point where the thing, if Jesus didn't step in the way that he did, we might have ended up in a divorce. And so we were on vacation, we were on our way home, and we were reaching our breaking point. You know, we had just been on vacation, and it didn't feel like a vacation at all. It was extremely stressful. It was extremely hard. And because I was on this like Buddhist like monk kick, like trying to get back to my Buddhist monk ways, it just didn't feel fun. And my husband was so annoyed, and I was annoyed that my husband was annoyed, and it was all of the things. And I just remember on my way home crying to do this. I was crying to God. I was crying to Source. I was crying to anything that was wanting to listen to me. And I was like, I don't know who I am. I don't know what I believe. I don't know where the hell you want me to go. I don't know who you want me to be. I don't know what you want me to believe in. And I don't know what to do. I was like, I'm about to start smoking weed again. I'm about to just give up. I'm about to be an atheist again. I'm about to not talk to nobody. That's like, meaning I'm not talking to Jesus. I'm not talking to deities. I'm not talking to God. I'm about to give up. And I was very honest, you know, talking to myself and talking to, I was hoping God was listening to me. And of course he was. So I went home and I was like, I'm gonna smoke weed. But luckily I ate something that made me not feel good. So my belly was hurt and I was like, well, I'm not gonna smoke weed tonight. Because it's just gonna make my belly hurt worse. So I just went to bed. And that night I had a dream of a church. Again, like I said, I had already been trying to go to church when I started having a relationship with Jesus. I was trying to go to church. I was trying to do everything except for read the Bible. I wasn't trying to read the Bible at all. I was staying far away from that thing. And so I had this dream of church, and it was just an incredible dream. Like I just remember it was a silhouette of a church. There was like light, sunbeams like behind the church. And it was just so incredibly beautiful. And I just remember feeling the whole time this feeling of I am home. I'm home. And I remember I woke up. Remember, okay, so we're on our way home from vacation. Me and my husband are fighting. We're like, I mean, it's breaking point time. I was gonna smoke weed, didn't smoke weed, went to bed, had this amazing dream, woke up, and I woke up. I was aware of that dream, but I was like, I don't care. Like I don't have a church. I don't know what church to go to. Every time I try to go to church, it doesn't work out. You know, so I woke up and I was like, whatever. That dream is whatever. I'm not even, I don't know. And just so happened to be a Sunday. So we got home on a Saturday night and had that dream Saturday night, woke up Sunday morning. Just so happened to wake up early enough to get to a church service. Even though I didn't wake up with that on my mind. So my husband's at a breaking point. I'm at a breaking point. I'm ready to lay in bed all day that day and to just be depressed. And like I said, on my way home from vacation, I was like, if something doesn't happen, like I'm giving up. I'm giving up on spirituality. I'm going to go be an atheist again. I'm going to close my business. I'm going to do all the things. I'm walking away and I'm just going to tuck my tail between my legs and surrender to defeat. Like I'm going to just surrender to failure at this point. Like the spiritual crap has failed me. I'm done. And I was ready to walk away and give up on all of it. So I woke up Sunday morning ready to be there. I was going to lay there all day, probably smoke some weed, maybe get a divorce. And I was ready to just like let my life totally burn to the ground. And thankfully, I could cry. Thankfully, God had other plans. And so my husband, thankfully, was also listening to God in his breakdown, and he texted his sister and he said, yeah, I don't have any emotional support. I'm breaking down, I'm losing it. And she said, come to church. So I'm laying in the bed. I'm mad. I'm pissed off at the world. I'm pissed off at him. I'm ready to give up. I'm ready to burn my life to the ground. And he says, "Get dressed. We're going to church." And I'm like pissed. I'm like, and I remember that dream. I remember the dream that I had. And I was like, huh. Like, I'm like, part of me was like, well, maybe there is something at church. I did have that really cool dream last night. But I'm like, on the surface, I'm like, I'm pissed. I'm like, church isn't going to do anything for me. I've been there, done that. I'm done with it. Like, I'm ready to burn my life to the ground. I don't care about anything right now. And we went, and I don't know what else to say besides that there was an angel there. And, losing my parents, losing my dad. I didn't feel like I had anything, and like I was ready to like divorce my husband a little bit. So I was like, feel so incredibly alone. There was a preacher that came and sat with me. He was there, he just was there. And he was like, "I'm a dad." And I was like, "I don't have a dad." And he just hugged me, and it was a really awesome experience. And then my husband came out and he talked with both of us, and he said, "Good thing about this being a big church is that we can offer marriage counseling. So please make a meeting with me." So we had a meeting with him, and um, so after that, I came home. I grabbed my Bible, and or I grabbed a Bible that I had gotten from that church that I went to a few months ago that made me mad. And I just started reading, and I was like, "I trust you, God." I mean, I didn't have anything. I knew I could, like I had that dream, and then he guided me to church. He got me to church. I wasn't gonna go. He got me there, and he brought this angel to me. And it was I would save everything. And so just I wrote it down. I remember writing it down. I got a brand new journal, a brand new notebook, and the first page, right here, the first page says my goals for the next 90 days. Because I'm a coach, right? Surrender and follow Christ authentically and genuinely. What do I need to be successful? And I just wrote out my mission. I wrote out the things that I needed to do. And on that list was like Bible study and just different things. And so I started reading the Bible again. I started in the book of Proverbs and in the book of John, and it wasn't easy. It was triggering, and I was like, all the religious trauma, all the oppression, all the doctrine, all the crap was just coming at me. And I would just write it down. I would say, "God, what does this mean? I don't like it. I don't like the way it makes me feel. I don't like what it reminds me of." He would like able to bring all out all of my fears and all of my pain and all of my even anger at him. Like, I don't understand you. I'm a little bit angry at you. Why is this even here? Why do people take it this way? Why is it taught this way? And I brought all of it to him. And every time bring it to him, he meets me where I'm at. He sends me love and he gives me guidance. My favorite verse in the Bible is Jeremiah chapter 33, verse 3, and it says, "Call me, and I will answer you with great and unsearchable things that you do not know." And that is what the New Age people would refer to as the super conscious mind. And it is so true. It is just such a beautiful truth, and it's my favorite verse. And when I was deep into New Age, I love numerology and I love all of that stuff. So 333 was my favorite number, and I thought it was just, of course, right. Jeremiah 33, verse 3. It's a verse that sticks with me. It's a verse that I know is to be absolutely and incredibly true. And I want to dedicate this channel and guide this channel to continue to share my walk, my journey with Christ. And today, this has been my testimony. This has been my journey. This has been what's unfolded. And I love you and I appreciate you for being here with me, skeptical or not skeptical, believer or not believer, somebody who just knows me, somebody here. I don't even know what your intentions might be here to watch this. Maybe you're just new crossing my channel. Um, However you got here, I'm just so glad you're here. I'm so glad you've listened all the way through and you've been here with me. And I hope you will continue to join me in my walk with Christ and how I begin to untangle and unfold all of these things that I've gotten tangled into. And Jesus is guiding me through. And I hope you will watch, if you haven't already, my um, purpose for this channel video that I've made. Um, it's it's kind of like the intro to this channel, just so you can learn all the different ways that I plan to use this channel and all the different ways you can connect with me through this channel. And I can't wait to get to know you. And I would love to hear your journey, your story in the comments below, or if you connect with me in some way. And I am just, again, so incredibly honored for this space, for this platform, and for all of you that are willing to spend some time with me and hear my story, hear my heart. And I can't wait to hear yours. I love you. I'll see you next time.